very loud and
Okay,
clear now.
great. So, what are some of the issues that workers at this time have been looking to labor unions to help address, given the state of emergency and, of course, related restrictions in place?
Yeah, thank you very much. Crucial issues that was raised is unfair and inhuman retirement processes that was taking place, where the workers were just shortly served with papers that they are retrenched without following any procedures. The second one was the forced leaves, being a sick leave, being unpaid leave, being annual leave, any type of leave that were forced to take. The other one was the shocking news of also reductions of their salaries without their consent, neither with any communications to them, which make them difficult even to own their financial obligations to renting and those kind of financial obligations. The other component is the absence or the selective benefiting of Social Security Commission, because there are those selected sectors to be assisted by Social Security is not the only one, because there is also secondary sectors that are affected in that process. If you take examples of pre-primary or the kindergarten, the private schools, and the list goes on. And those are the crucial issues that was raised to us. But luckily enough, there was a proclamation of the regulations which at least have put a rest to all these issues that was raised. Now the questions that we face with is the ability of the Office of Labour Commissioner, whether they are able to handle these kind of things if these cases are referred to their officers, and how they are going to deal with it. Are they going to assist the workers, or are they going to worsen the situations as presented by the employers to the workers?
Right. What would then, in your view, would the ideal situation be with the regulator in terms of dealing with some of these challenges, Mr. Kavihuha?
The regulations make it very clear that it is completely out of order for employers to retrench the employees during the lockdown and the state of emergency. They also went further, outlawing the issues of the forced leave, that no employee should be given a forced leave, and also it went further to say that no employer has the right to unilaterally reduce the employee's salary. Right. All, whatever the employer has to do, have to be done through discussion or through social dialogue.
Okay. So we are running out of time, but there was something that I wanted to get your input on, and that is, of course, your take on some of the sentiments that we've heard expressed this day, that trade unions have relatively lost their relevance, that leaders perhaps don't clearly understand their role as part of the working class, and that this can be blamed for somewhat of a degeneration of modern-day workers' position in the job market. What do you have to say to that assertion?
We should understand one thing, that the mode of production has completely changed from the most trade union favorable production, which was for this mode of production, which was conducive for trade union to mobilize. Now we have modularizations, ways of production, which is more difficult for trade to organize. The other component is a neo-capitalist tendency, which has captured governments and most of the leaders within society, which means that the governments, when they're promulgating laws or labor laws, they craft labor laws that make difficult for trade union to organize and for them to function. Of course, there are some trade union leaders who are using trade union for their personal political and economic interests. And of course, in Namibia, we know those kind of trade union leaders, and we have to confront the situation. But all in all, what we know is that the COVID-19 has presented an opportunity for the workers to realize that it's very important to belong to a trade union, and for them to keep their trade union leaders accountable. Of course, the labor laws, they need to be a dynamic legal instrument which have to adjust, because the labor market is very much dynamic. And if we keep the labor laws rigid while the labor market is changing, always that notions will always come true.
Yes. So lastly, before we let you go, largely on account of time, what is your message to the country's workers who may be looking for reassurance under the current weak economic conditions?
I don't have a very positive message to the workers. However, I have a message to the government to say that post COVID-19, we need to look at the structural change or transformation of economy. This kind of cosmetic changing of programs and economic policies will not help us. We need to look to change the economy structurally, and we start with the issues of land. We go to the issues of beneficiations to the national resources, the creations of sovereign wealth, fund, so that we can address these kind of things. And we have to ensure that we now use this opportunity to develop a comprehensive universal social protection, and we redefine the structures of our fiscal spending so that it can talk to the reality on the ground.
Mr. Kavihuha, thank you very much for your time. That's unfortunately all that we have for you this evening. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much for calling me.
There was Mr. Mahongora Kavihuha, Secretary General of the Trade Union Congress of Namibia.